person who we have to speak is Dr. Baba Buntu. I know he has come on this platform a few times while I've been on here, and I think a few times before then also, and he has blown this place up. So I am very much looking forward to hearing from him. I know that Andrew was about to talk about Weiler, West Side Young Leaders Academy, and I'm not too sure. I think I saw one question in there. Whereabouts in London is it? Well, there's the one that he is talking about right now is in northwest London, but there are a few that are opening across London at the moment. And I know last week he just spoke about one that is opening up in Lewisham. And so I believe that China has put the link in the chat. Sis China, can you please drop the link in the chat one more time for everybody to do take a look, and do send, if you have any young children that you know between the ages of 8 and 16 who would love to go to a supplementary style school that is done mainly on the weekends. I believe it's Saturdays. Do send them there. We do need children to go to these kinds of schools, because unfortunately, even as a vice principal in my own school, we don't do enough for people that look like us. And I was grateful enough to have Brother Leo, who also came on earlier, and Brother Andrew teaching me in one of those schools when I was just 7, I think even younger than that perhaps, and that's how I started with my own journey. So yes, Dr. Sandra Richards, yes, you can jump on. Please feel free to come on board.
Okay, greetings. I just thought I would come back in, if I may, because I know you're anchoring and you're holding it. And if I may take the liberty of just inviting, when Brother Andrew comes back in, I'm sending him some love too, because he's always asking us to send love to people. And here it is, he's gone to lay his father to rest, but he's still not letting go of the hidden truth.
Oh.
He's still showing up. He's still being a soldier, and he's still recognizing the importance of his family. And, you know, I don't know how you might do that, Queen, but he should know that we'll sit here and we'll wait for him. You know, we'll sit here and we'll wait for him. So maybe just recognize, if you have a father, then you're that close, even though you know they're transitioning, it's got to be a thing. You know, it's got to be a thing to walk into your father's home and your father's actually not greeting you physically like he would have done. So
yeah,
you know, I just wanted to acknowledge him in that huge role. You know, when your father's gone or when your mother's gone, that means that there's not another layer above you. Yeah, unless it's you have your grandparents, it means that you're now the top layer, or you and your siblings. So yeah.
I know, it is pretty, well, it's a challenge. And he said to me this week, he called me up and he said, I'm going to Jamaica on Monday. I might not have internet. I need you to hold the fort should the hidden truth go down. And just to know that he was still thinking about all of us getting what we need each week from this platform, outside of his own needs as well, was very, very, very sweet. And so here I am.
You are amazing.
Trying to hold it together. What I am going to do is, I know Dr. Buntu, are you there? Hello, come in. Are you there, sir?
Blessed greetings, my sister, and the whole family. Yes, I'm very much here in spirit and person. You are doing a fantastic job.
I'm trying my best, brother. I don't think I'm as spicy or as loud or as enthusiastic as Andrew is, but usually is. But I'm trying my best tonight. So I know that you are up. You are our keynote speaker tonight, and I have had the pleasure of hearing from you twice before now. I know you've been on the platform more than that, but personally, I've heard you twice, and both times you have kept my attention. It's very hard to keep my attention because I'm slightly dyslexic and, you know, all of these other things. But you've kept my attention. You've taught me things new. And to be fair, I've very much enjoyed the way your style of delivery and your passion behind everything that you speak about. I can see that you clearly feel very strongly about it. I've even followed you on Instagram. I heard your cool rap that you did like a week after the last time, and we played it. Sorry, we played it on here. I was like, Andrew, have you seen this? And he then played it the following week. You've all seen it already. Sorry, if you missed it, you missed it. But on Instagram, you can see him rapping away and joining the likes of Tupac and Biggie doing his little rap there. He's awesome. So what I am going to do, Brother Andrew hasn't come back, but I know he will drop in when he can. But if you could please start, and I will come in. If you do have any questions, as usual, guys, please drop them in the chat. I'm watching both. I'm also watching the question and answer box. And if you do have anything, I will try and interrupt the doctor to put your questions across as and when is appropriate. But thank you so much for coming on again. Very much looking forward to hearing you speak tonight. And over to you. Let me give you sharing rights. I'm not too sure if you want to share your screen. But yes, you should have it now. Do you?
Yep, beautiful, beautiful.
There we go. Right.
Thank you so much, Sister Jurita, for the warm welcome and for the great job that you are doing holding the platform together. Greetings of the greatest Black love ever and Pan-African spirits to the whole family. Thank you so much to everyone who is on the platform right now. And I cannot begin without acknowledging I have got family on this platform. We just had the pleasure of being blessed by Sister Queen Sandra Richards, a very dear sister to me that I met many, many years ago. And it's such an honor to see her on this platform. My brother Leo Mohammed, we have known each other for years. Living so far apart hasn't given us the opportunity to spend so much time together. But now with this virtual reality being upon us, it was such a blessing also to see him there. And again, my brother Andrew Mohammed, I have so much respect for this brother. I'm making a plan to steal him to come here and stay with us in Tanzania, because we need him right here. So I'm not sure if I really even want to share him with anyone. He must just come here and be with us right here. But I'm very, very thankful.
Sorry.
We're gonna have to fight about that, right?
Yes.
It might be ugly, so let me calm down. Let me calm down. But let me just say a very, very warm greeting to everyone. It's such an honor to be on this platform. And it's such an important reminder that, because I'm sure that I'm speaking for many sisters and brothers who are with us this evening, that at times this road feels so lonely. At times you feel like you are the only one. At times you feel that nobody really understands what your passion is. At times you wonder, like, should I even continue? Because it seems like it doesn't even work. We're not making progress. And you crumble as much as you want to go forward, you crumble and you doubt and you almost fall apart. So to know that the family is huge, there's so many out there who are doing the work, who are involved. So my opening greeting is just to every sister and brother who has walked the journey of self-knowledge and now is busy sharing with others, making sure that others are inspired, informed, and relearning so that they can also continue to walk the walk and be practical Pan-Africanists. That's what we really need more than anything. And I also want to join in the many who have given reverence to our beloved Dr. Runuko Rashidi, whose physical body has left us. But as Queen Dr. Sandra was reminding us, if there's somebody who has left a footprint, that is Dr. Runuko Rashidi. Like, he is exempt. I mean, we are not making any more expectations to somebody of that stature. He has left volumes of information, and his legacy will stand for generations. Like, he has etched himself into African humankind for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So I just want to say thank you for also, I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person. And I'm just giving so much respect and honor to the memory and to the being and to the soul that he was and will continue to be, because we will call him as an ancestor. We need his presence, we need his diligence, we need his love for details and compassion. He was somebody who lived his Pan-Africanism every single day, and I'm sure he even slept it. So I have so much respect for this man, and we give honor to his memory. May his soul always rise in power. Ashe.
Ashe.
I think then I will go into my presentation. Now, Dr. Sister Sandra gave us so much beauty to dwell on. And here I come with violence, with anger, with brutality. So I'm just saying, if you're not in that mood, maybe you should watch this a little bit later, because I'm not going to make you happy. I can just say that. But I also hope that as much as, because these things cannot be spoken about in nice and hushed tones. They are brutal. And they are part of our reality. And even those of you who have never been to Azania, you will pick it up. You have seen this. You know what I'm talking about, because you've seen the same structure bring us down and bring us to the brink of our existence everywhere else in the world as well. So my topic is African identity, self-hatred, and disunity in Azania. And I'm just begging and pleading with Sister Jurita and Brother Andrew, please feel free to say time's up, because I could go forever on this topic, because I'm very passionate about us finding solutions. And that means we also need to go into the gutter of what some of our really, really challenging dynamics are about.
Can I quickly say, Dr.
Yes, please.
Baba, if anyone's got any questions, because I know this brother is going to take us on a real deep journey. So if there's questions that you'd like to ask at any time, please, Jurita is there, but try to put your questions in the Q&A box so it doesn't get lost in the comment section. But Jurita will come in at any time and have that conversation with Dr. Babu, okay, Baba Buntu. So thank you very much, my king, and please educate us.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you again. And I'm so delighted to see that the family has picked up Sanibonani, as I was sharing with the family some weeks back. And I hope you also haven't forgotten the response. So when somebody says Sanibonani to a group of people, the response is Yebo. And for those who were not part of that lecture, Sanibonani means I see you. And it's such a profound statement for a people that have been unseen and have been written out of history and that have been marginalized for generations. For us to see each other is a political statement. So let us see each other and let us also respond. Yebo means yes. So when somebody says, I see you, you also say, I have been seen. So it's a beautiful and important greeting. My introduction is to say that in what I've prepared for you tonight, I want to give you a little bit of insight into Azania. And it's driven very much by what has been happening over the last weeks. So this is in no way a full presentation about every element and every dynamic to Azania, because what I'm not going to talk so much about tonight is the beauty of the country, the hope that I see every day, the incredible young people who are working every single day to really improve themselves, better themselves, and own their legacy and their futures. Tonight, I'm going to go into the dark spaces of some of the things that really hit hard, especially this month of July. I'm going to, as I agreed with Brother Andrew quite a few weeks ago, we want to touch on African identity, self-hatred, and disunity. But I want to locate it in the scenarios that we've been seeing rolling out over the last few weeks. And we're looking at, is what we have seen, and I'm sure that you have seen some of the footage on your TV screens, and I know that you don't get the full story. But the question is, are these uprisings or are these self-destruction? What should we do with our anger as Black people? What is an amicable way to say that you're tired of being oppressed? What is an understandable way to bring your issue to whoever you want to feel the wrath of your impatience and your tiredness? Those are the questions we want to go into. And I just want to quickly also introduce myself. In African culture, introducing yourself is very important, to say where you're from, to say who you represent. And I wanted to share with you some of the members of my family, the Buntu family. On top there, you see me with Queen Mama Teburo, who's also sending her warm greetings. And we are a family that functions as an extended family. We have a number of family members who may not be our blood relatives, but are sons and daughters, uncles and aunties, and part of a family. Some of us live together in the house. We are anything between 6 and 10 people at any given time. And it's a choice we have also made, because on the road that we travel as we do our work, we come across many young people who remind us of our own difficult journeys many years ago, when we were looking for people to guide us. We were looking for people to take us under their wing, and sometimes we didn't find anybody. And we have decided that we want to be those for other, especially younger people who are on this journey. So as a family, and a very important principle, because we represent an organization called Ebukosini Solutions. Ebukosini means House of Royalty. And we feel that before we can even engage with any person and community out there, we need to check ourselves. Are we living the principles? Am I honoring my queen? Are we honoring our children? Are we honoring the community that we talk a lot about and say that we serve? And if we don't, we shouldn't even go out and say anything. So we want to live the life that we talk about. So healing, power, and building are three concepts that we want to live up to in the highest sense every single day. As Ebukosini, our main focus is on African-centered learning, cultural literacy and leadership, and transformation. I'm not going to go so much into it because I realize that also time has passed a little bit, but I want to maybe as I close the lecture a little bit later, also say that for those of you who are interested in investing or supporting some of the work that we do, we really do need you on board. And I know that there are a number of sisters and brothers who would love to make a difference on the continent and may not have had the opportunity yet to come or to be directly involved. We are a portal for many sisters and brothers also in the diaspora who want more information, who may plan to come and visit, who may plan to come and stay, and also would like to share a dividend of their own income or resources. And I can say this, for every cent, for every little coin that you can share with us, we promise to stretch it. We promise to make sure that it gets to the absolutely best use. We work a lot with youth, we work with men, we work with women, we work with what we have just said now, and maybe summing it up in transformation. We want change. We don't want this reality that we see right now, and we think it's our responsibility to build that change. But let me get into Azania. So without spending much time on the word Azania, but many of you may be aware that Azania is a word that some of us choose to use instead of the word South Africa, which is not really a name of a country in the first place. It's the direction, it's a geographical position, it's not a country name. But there's many theories about where the word Azania comes from, but we see it as a naming of a people who were a very mighty people, but then got thrown out and became landless. And it's in that understanding that we call ourselves Azanians, because we are in the same predicament that other people came and took away our resources, and which has left many of us without the land that we used to own. So without making this a deep history lecture, it is important to know where this comes from. And of course, I would have loved to spend a lot of time, and which we often don't do when we talk about history. We sometimes start at the point of being colonized, which is really wrong, because our memory is far further than that. But because of the nature of the things that I want to talk about tonight, it's important to start with that. So you see the numbers on your screen. You see how Azania, or South Africa, became first a Dutch colony and was in turmoils with the French and also the Portuguese and the British about who should own and who should take. There's a whole lot of scuffles between these colonial nations. And of course, in the midst of that, African people were tossed back and forth as they were waging their own wars against each other. They came to wage war on a people that they realized had incredible intelligence, had deep science, and were a very highly esteemed people, and took advantage of that, wanted to own it, wanted to enslave, wanted to make sure that the civilizations they came across would never, ever continue to remember themselves as a mighty people. And this is why Africa was colonized. This is also why this part of the continent was colonized. In the 1800s, you had a number of an expansion, which we refer to Mfecane, and we talk a lot about King Shaka Zulu, who expanded the Zulu Empire through dynamics that often became quite violent and caused a lot of conflict also amongst African people. Remember, African people were at this point being cornered by Europeans who were also fighting against themselves, in addition to fighting against African people. There was a whole lot of confusion, a whole lot of death, a very dark period in South African history. Then the Union of South Africa really started in 1910. And after a few years, this turned into a full-fledged apartheid state. And as many of you will know, apartheid means to separate, and that was the politics of apartheid, to make sure that people were separated largely on the basis of race. From the 50s upwards is when Africans have always been fighting since the first steps that colonists have set on the continent. But the formation of political parties that are still existing today started becoming very active and very confrontational around the 50s and 60s. And the party that is still in government, the African National Congress, there was an outbreak of what is called the Pan-African Congress of Azania that broke out also at the end of the 50s through the work of Sobukwe. And this is what I mentioned also in my previous lecture. We spoke about Biko, we spoke about Sobukwe, we spoke about a number of Pan-African heroes. Now, and then that leads us up to 1994. I just wanted to give that as a historical backdrop to kind of when South Africa or Azania was declared to be a free nation. All of us know that that was more in word than in actual practicality, but we'll get back to that. So what is Azania today? And I know many people who have followed this development of Azania for many, many years wonder, like, what is South Africa right now? And as I said, I'm focusing on one dynamic. There is another dynamic, which is maybe in more positive tones, but I'm choosing to talk about this part because it affects everything in Azania. So Azania has about 16 million people, 80% are African. As you will know, that the apartheid state also used race as a very deviant tool to make sure to keep people apart. And it's not just about black and white, it's also about the different language groups within Azania. So for instance, if you were a Zulu speaking family, you were supposed to not stay in the same community as a Sotho speaking family. And that would also keep a lot of turmoil happening between different groups in society. And that was the whole setup. Colored is a South African specific term. I have resisted to use it for many, many years, but there is something called coloredness in South African society, and it is invented, it is designed. It is the idea that you keep certain people in between identities. They can never be white, but they can also not fully, well, many at least don't fully claim a black identity. So they kind of exist in between. And that works wonders for a colonial regime, because now you have people of color fighting between themselves, and that's the whole design. Then you have 8% European, about 2.5% to 3% Indian, and another percent that is classified as other. Then in terms of social indicators, 50% of people in South Africa live under the poverty line. And this is important to say, because South Africa has kind of etched itself into the memory and the imagination of many other people on the continent, in other parts of the continent, and also across the world, to be kind of a better Africa, a more civilized Africa, a more modern, Europeanized Africa, because you have seen the skyscrapers, you've seen the urban architecture, you've seen, you know that certain technology is more advanced in this country than it is in a few others. And that has kind of given this notion that South Africa is richer and it's better and it's easier. Yes, it is for some, for a small portion of the country, and most of them would have descent outside of this country. We have communities with up to 70% of our youth are unemployed. When I say youth in South Africa, that means up to the age of 35. Now you can just imagine how abnormal it is to even have a job when you know that 70% are actually in unemployment. And that sets itself up for a number of tragic life existences and troubles in individual and community life. Land ownership, less than 10% of Black people, or less than 10% of the land is owned by Black people. So we know that the aggressor and the enemy is still owning the land and owning the resources, owning the production, owning everything that really sets the foundation of an economy such as South Africa as well. South Africa is called the most...
Cut you one real quick there. Thank you so much. So just a quick question and something also just to raise, because 3 years ago today is the first time that I ever stepped foot in South Africa.
Right, okay.
I know, I absolutely loved my trip. The picture actually came up today. I don't know if you can see this, but this is me in with the elephant. Don't worry, I'll put it.
Yes,
anyway,
I see it.
So 3 years ago today I did it, so I don't think this is very much a coincidence. However, I must say, when I did go, being the way I am, there was some kind of feeling of people looking at me as though I thought I was something, I don't know. White people looked at me, Black people also looked at me. It was a very interesting dynamic to kind of get across, where I thought I would be with my own people and feel comfortable. I don't think I did feel very comfortable, and obviously I didn't feel very comfortable there either. So it was very interesting, and actually I did enjoy my time. I've been to South Africa many times. I loved my time with British Airways crew. You know, we went from Johannesburg to Durban, all of those lovely places, Cape Town. Beautiful. I1absolutely adore that country. But the main question that I have, and I guess you know, I think it's Sis Lightning usually came up with this question. She said 80% of South Africa you put there is Afrikaan. I mean, you said is that Black, and how would we? So we're just saying is Black.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jurita, for sharing both your own experience about the visit. You must come back and let me know. We'll show you the real country. But I didn't say this up front, but I insist on writing Africa with a K. And that can be a bit extra confusing in South Africa because Boere people, I cannot call them anything than Boere people. They are the descendants of the Dutch people. They are white people who invented their own Africanness. So they call themselves Afrikaners. Which means African in a Dutch form of language. And I don't agree that they're Africans, so I would never refer to them as Afrikaners. I refer to them as Boere people. So when I say African here, 80%, I mean Black people. I mean indigenous people to Africa, yes. So, and when I say European, that's when I mean the settlers, those who invaded, those who came in many years ago, but also recently of European descent. So thank you for clarifying that. But it's very important what you said, that South Africa is hypersensitive around issues of race. People are very obsessed with complexions, very obsessed, and within the continent, South Africans are known to be have a little bit of a lighter shade than many other people on the continent. And some South Africans have developed a form of pride in that, feeling that they are not as dark as, and that when they see people who are in a much darker complexion, that's a thing for many people. And when they maybe see somebody of light complexion, I think maybe your experience also has to do when you open your mouth and they hear a certain accent,
Cool.
then the assumption is, or she's probably not from here, and the way she even speaks, she doesn't sound like she has lived here for a long time. So it's not just about complexion, but complexion and skin color. People are obsessed with that. And of course, that is because the experience of every Black South African is to be, I mean, this country, when I now came to in the presentation talking about the invention of apartheid, just as thick as Jim Crow laws and all of that in America, the same thing was going on here. America actually took their inspiration from South Africa in terms of how they dealt with racial discrimination. There would be tests of, if you have a little bit looser hair or a bit wavier hair, there would be tests where you have to put a pencil in the hair. If it falls out, you're not Black. If it sticks, you are Black. Like, and those kind of things would be done to decide.
I'm just testing. Hold on. Let me see if it stays. Hold on. Hey!
And those tests would be done to then determine where you should stay, how you should be treated, whether you could get a job, if you should get paid, if you should go to school. All these things that in a freer society you end up taking for granted. So South Africa has been called the most unequal economy in the world, and that means that education, health, water, food, wages, property are only reserved in terms of abundance and rich supply for a few. It also impacts on your access to public services, legal rights, and safety. And that's an important thing to say. South Africa is not only a violent society. I mean, sometimes I think the portrayal of South Africa has also sometimes gone overboard, but there are many violent elements in South Africa's history, and there are many elements of that also shapes the everyday life of South Africa. So that was a bit of an introduction into what Azania is now in relation to what I want to talk about. Now I wanted to speak a little bit more generally about the terms that I wanted to bring up. So I wanted to talk about African identity. And I think we all have an understanding that identity has something to do with my understanding of self. But it also has to do with how others see me. And sometimes, and especially as African people, we can think about W.E.B. Du Bois writing on double consciousness. We may have an understanding of who we are within ourselves, but often in interaction with people, especially people who have represented a very strong animosity towards us, we will also start seeing ourselves through their eyes. So when we, for instance, sometimes see white people, we feel we may see what they see. So if they like, just imagine a situation that I'm sure many brothers and maybe sisters even have experienced in England. You enter an elevator or a bus and a white person clenches their purse or sits a little bit more tighter because they expect that you're going to attack them, or you're going to, like, you represent danger. And probably at no point are you wondering, I wonder what that happens. I wonder what that was. What there must be a confusion. You know what that was. And when you kind of get used to understanding that other people react to you just because of your physical attributes, that is called a double consciousness, and that impacts on how we see ourselves, because you can't really be relaxed just about your looks and what you represent. You constantly have to think about, and this is why many women have had to spend a lot of time going into the working world thinking about how to put their hair, how to not be perceived as a threat. African men also the same thing, being seen as a threat, tone it down, be amicable, speak in harsher tones. Like we need to perform, especially in the presence of whiteness. So it impacts on how we see ourselves. And power, you know, it's very interesting sometimes to think about how would your life have been different if you had lived as a white person. And maybe with like, don't even think about the extreme performance of whiteness, but just a white person, how your understanding of power would have been completely different. You would probably not have even thought about it. But as an African person, you always have to think about, do you have power? Should you raise an issue? Should you be should you be confrontational? Should you just bite your lip and keep it in, which many of us do? So it's also the power that, and I always mention this as an example when white people, for instance, say that I'm sick and tired of this thing that you black people say about white people having privilege. Some of us don't have privilege. We grew up poor. And I said, but one example of that privilege is that as a white person, you could put your child in school everywhere in the world, and your child would be guaranteed to know part of their history everywhere in the world. As a black child, you may not even be guaranteed knowing your history, even in a country where there's a majority of black people. That's an example of how white supremacy and white privilege works. Now, how do we form black identities? And of course, it's not just one way, but what this means is the processes we go through to understand what race does. And as we know, some of us want to live in denial. We don't really want to accept race, or we want to see, because we learn this thing that is supposed to sound beautiful. There's only one race, the human race. Yeah, if you say that, I can't. I just can't take that sentence, because the reality is not that there is one race. The reality is that it does matter if you're black or white. But many of us find it hard to take that in and live for a long time, hoping that it's not as bad as some people seem to say. So that awakening to that, you know what? This world is really racist. This world actually has a problem with me because I'm black. Just going through that can be quite a shocking journey for some, and a very traumatic journey for others. The black experience is that. And when we then also learn within our community to say, I'm black and I'm proud, I'm beautiful, it's kind of, but what am I then? I'm seen as ugly, I'm seen as a threat, but now I need to say that it's positive. It takes some time to go through that journey and find your steady walk through it. I mentioned double consciousness, and last time I also mentioned taking a decolonial position. And what that means is that your blackness, you need to also see it in light of power, knowledge, and being. And just to exemplify very quickly, that you realize that blackness does not constitute power in this world. Blackness is not linked to knowledge. And if it is always via another source. So maybe you were adopted by a white family, or maybe you had a scholarship to Cambridge. Or like, that's how you can be maybe recognized to have some knowledge. But you cannot draw, you are not expected to have knowledge just from your being a black person. And the being of being black, again, loads you with a whole lot of baggage. Remember that you may have a certain way to navigate your world around race and blackness, but it's very likely that you also come from generations where that issue was not really resolved, and that issue was sitting very deeply as a big scar. And as a descendant of somebody who went through all this trauma, that trauma also ends up with you, sometimes in ways that you're not even able to articulate it. And that's why, as Sister Sandra was mentioning, the healing of us as a people is so important. None of us is exempt. All of us have scars. There is no black person without racial scars. We may have them in different ways and tones and textures, but we all have them. So the understanding then, and especially when we now want to talk about African identity, and the only separation I create between black and African is that blackness came into our reality because of how we were seen and stereotyped by predominantly white people. That's when we became black, meaning black is not an identity that we chose because we woke up and we felt that that's a good identity we really want to classify ourselves with. We had to take that label because it was given to us, And then in defiance, we also decided that, you know what, you cannot just put this label on me to make me feel bad. I'm going to also claim it, and I'm going to put my own positive values into my Blackness. But I'm just saying that it wasn't a chosen identity. African identity is linked to the Black identity. I can't separate the two, but this is where we go more into the historical, and you will recognize that I'm saying our story and not his story, because we know who he is. And that's not the story we need to study. We need to study our story. And that's why we love Runuko Rashidi. That's why we love so many of our profound scholars who have made it easier for us to find our history. So I hope in every Black home, there's a huge collection of history books for young ones, for older ones too. And we must admit that we come from a form of supremacy, and not supremacy so much built on trying to put other people down, but coming from a supremacy of creating civilizations of incredible order, incredible deep science, incredible intelligence. And that's what I mean with a certain supremacy, that we were elevated people. We lived in a very high mind, in a very high form of self, and we were able to maintain that for a long time. That is not what we see anywhere on the planet right now. Then we also need to understand the design of imperialism. This urge that nations had to destroy, take over, rob us, and loot and steal from us, and the marginalization and blanking out that comes with that. So you will struggle to find your story if you don't intentionally look for it. So now we are talking about identity politics, and there's at least two ways of seeing this. One is, and I'd like to start with this one, is when we decide to speak from our center and our truth. And we put the emphasis on how the rest of the world responds to us rather than how we react to it. Meaning, when we write our history, and I want to make an example around this. For instance, when white people write the history of enslavement and the slave trade, they will often say in their books that 10 to 12 million Africans survived the slave trade. Why do they use that emphasis? Because to them, it was important how many workers survived the slave trade. But when we count, we want to count how many were stolen, how many were taken away, how many died, how many got sick, how many got too old to do the work that white people forced them to do. So our number is hugely, it's much bigger, because we count every Black body, every African who was taken away. And that's an example of us speaking from our center. We also then want to build politics that will change our lives and end oppression. And that's the work that I know that many of you are involved in. And Brother Muhammad, I would just want to also really lift you up and highlight the work that you do, especially for young men and young women. It is incredible. You are building nations. I have so much respect for this. I want to get through these slides so that I can get back to talk about Azania, but just before that, self-hatred. And my understanding of self-hatred is that it is designed upon us. It's something that is almost ready-made, and then we walk into it, and the world around us almost expects us to fall into all the traps. But in a collective sense, and this is important to understand, if you look at the collective way of understanding how you create an identity and a relation to self, is that you are being birthed, meaning that, and I'm not talking about just the physical birth from a mother's womb, I'm talking about initiation processes where you are birthed into womanhood or manhood, you are birthed into leadership, you are birthed into parenthood, meaning that you need to lean on other people to become who you are supposed to be. And without them, you cannot fully be. You are there to represent. So when you are away from your people, to honor your people is at the fore of your mind. You want to represent, you want to be there, you want to be a good representative of your people. And when you come back from whatever you have done, you want to report back and say that as your son, as your daughter, as your family member, this is what I've done, this is what I've achieved, this is what I've encountered. And that comes from a worldview of harmony, meaning that not that you just see harmony everywhere in the world, but that's where every human activity should lead you. I'm just explaining this as a very different and oppositional view to the European, how they move in this world. The European world worldview is very centered on how you must self-create. You must give birth to yourself. You cannot allow other people to birth you. You must, instead of representing, you must present. So that individual power and that individual urge to move in the world sits very at the center of your understanding of the world. And also because the European world is based on conflict, it's based on difference seen as threat. So for instance, when one of the things that we have very sadly inherited and been brainwashed into almost claiming as our own is part of what we do in the space of gender. How, and for me, the hatred towards women and the brutality towards women comes from the European man who was so scared of his woman because he could not allow his woman to become great, to become self-assured, to become in her power. And we will remember how many European women were burnt as witches, and often because they portrayed certain characteristics of strength and leadership, and that was killed. And we being brainwashed into this reality, we also, some of us, took on those values, and these are some of the things we need to decolonize ourselves away from. But just to kind of understand that the worldview, how you enter the world, what you do when you see a member of a different group, what you do when you see somebody who represents something different than you, is vastly different in these two different approaches to the world. And then oppression, when, like I said before, when oppression becomes the norm, and when this has been experienced over generations, there's an identity fatigue. You are sick and tired of thinking about how do people perceive me? Who am I? What am I? It's tiresome. And to some extent, some of us fall within that. And that's when we maybe can say, especially when we sometimes use the word African people being conscious, those who may not develop that consciousness often find themselves in that state, that they are full of self-doubt, that they don't really want to put much emphasis on the work that they need to do for their own healing and empowerment. Dr. Naeem Akbar talks about the alien self and the anti-self. And I think I also want to talk about the non-self. So the alien self is when you develop a self that you no longer really gel with or agree with or can like. And anti-self is when you develop behaviors that you know are actually destructive, but you do it anyway. So for instance, to drink excessively can be from an underlying idea about yourself that you're not really that much worth. So you're going to allow yourself to engage with a behavior that eventually will destroy you. So when we then stand before the world, we come with all of these baggages, and we stand very heavily before the world with this identity fatigue, with self-doubt. And what we often can do at that point is to react. So when somebody calls me a profanity word to my face, then I may react. Then I may want to bring all kinds of heat. But the daily oppression, I'm used to it. The daily oppression, why should I march? Why should I be out there trying to change? We're not really going to change anyway. So let me just get with the program. That's often the state we get to. And that sets everything up for disunity. And I think in my view, disunity again is a design. It's how we are supposed to be in this world. It's what is expected from us. And I think that the brokenness of our character in many ways represents a longing for a unity we feel very unable to build because we carry our individual colonial wounds. We move with a collective self-doubt. And I use the word soul murder often when I talk about, I borrowed it in this presentation. I normally use it in relation to rape and sexual molestation, because when that is done to somebody, you've actually ripped out their soul. But I'm also using it maybe a little bit more symbolically in also what has happened to us as a people, because on a symbolic level and in a practical level as well, we have been taken away, our humanity has been taken away, and we linger in this world as non-beings to quite a deep level. So in terms of the question of,
just quickly, just before it stops becoming pertinent, could you just quickly remind me what doctor defined the alien, anti, and non-self? Who said that
Yes,
again?
Dr. Naim Akbar.
Spell that for me, please.
Naim
Yep.
Akbar. Akbar.
Okay. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yes. Thanks for the question.
No, it's okay.
And now I'm linking, this is the last slide on this. If you see the picture here, by the way, I'm using this picture, you see folded hands, and this normally leads us to think about prayer, right? So sometimes, and I see this around me quite a lot as well. For instance, even with the latest outbreak of demonstrations, I saw a message of somebody saying, our community is being attacked, let us pray. And this is what some white people do. They are preparing themselves for a race war. This is from a training camp in South Africa, where white people are telling their youngsters that black people are dangerous, and if you don't stand up for yourself, you will be killed. White people have actually created a quite efficient PR machinery and tells the world that there's a white genocide going on in South Africa. And if you don't know better, you could believe the images, because they configure a lot of documentation material to make it look like white people are dying every single day from black brutal people who walk around killing them. But then the question is, how do we go from chaos to order? Because if we remember Ma'at, that's what Ma'at should represent in our lives, that we move in a world of chaos, but we are asked to bring it into order. And how do we do that with all these burdens on our shoulders, with all the confusion that we carry? How do we dismantle? How do we disrupt? And how do we rebuild? And this is where I come to the last few slides on what has been happening in South Africa or in Tanzania the last few days. So you may have seen some images of people stealing stuff. It's been referred to looting, where people have been running into shopping centers and shops and taking stuff, food, fridges, gadgets, all kinds of things, setting buildings on fire, setting cars on fire, a whole lot of chaotic occurrences. Now, this is now a couple of weeks ago, and in the reports that are coming out, and I'm referring to, I mean, I haven't done this research particularly myself. I'm leaning on other resources, so I can't really account fully, but from cross-referencing, I'm trying to find out what seems to be the situation on the ground. So more than 350 people have died during these demonstrations, and that means it includes stampedes, where people were just walking on top of each other, pushing each other, people falling, people ending up under cars. It means police and the army coming in to stop and shoot and push people. It's different reasons why people have died, but it's quite a high number. More than 200 malls were set on fire or looted or broken into or were caused damage to. 80 pharmacies were broken into. More than 1,400 ATMs were broken apart. This has affected 45,000 businesses. 11 warehouses and 8 factories were also damaged, and 161 liquor stores. And it's interesting to also think about what liquor represents often in our community. The total damage has been estimated to 20 billion rand, which equates 1 billion British pounds. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, this is maybe the story that you don't see. What is the backdrop to this? Why do people go on such rampage? Who are they fighting against? What does it serve a community that already is challenged to go out and steal stuff from the shopping centers in the neighborhood, and then a few weeks later being without food, having to line up in long queues to get food? How does this happen? And this is why my introduction was important for these slides. The inequality, the political turmoil, and what I must add also is what COVID-19 has done to the African population, especially in Tanzania, where South Africa has had the most stringent and strict laws of lockdown, in terms of curfews, in terms of a whole lot of things that you could not buy, a number of shops that could not be open. And what this did to many people who were already struggling in poverty, they were even pushed further back. Now, even with the requirements of social distancing, there's no way in a township in South Africa that you can observe social distancing. People are literally living side by side. So that doesn't work. And then yet police are out there to reinforce that people must stay in their house, they must not walk on the street. And then a number of violent episodes took place where police attacked the populace or community members. I want to say something about ex-President Jacob Zuma, because I know that the news story often carries an understanding that it was because him not being willing to be on trial that he, and then people stood up and they marched out and they started. It's not as simple as that. Jacob Zuma, who was the president of the country for a while, is both popular and hated. Some of you may remember that he was accused of rape and he was acquitted on quite sketchy and strange foundations. And there was a whole lot of turmoil around that situation as well. He's very popular because amongst some people he's seen as, and I think it has a lot to do with that he's seen as being a better representative than a number of other presidents who seem to be very well schooled in European institutions, seem to be very welcoming to European investors, whereas Jacob Zuma has been seen as somebody who practices African culture and somebody who also gives way to African business. But he is also on trial for a number of corruption situations. He is accused of having given certain business deals to two Indian brothers, the Gupta brothers, and so and that situation is often referred to as state capture, when businesses and individuals in political spheres take over there and influences governance. So he's on trial for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. They are sometimes summed into 16 brackets of cases. But as he did not show up when he was supposed to be in court, and he refused because and I'm not going to go into the story, but the Zondo Commission is led by a man called Zondo, who Zuma claims that they have a personal relationship that will cloud and create a bias. So he says, take Zondo out and I will show up. Then the court has said, we're not going to do that, and the commission has insisted. So he said, rather than being on trial, I will take jail. So these outbreaks started when Zuma then went to jail. But they're not just about Zuma. There might have been elements that kind of created a moment for people to go on rampage. But it really is about the underlying elements of rage, the fatigue, the disillusion, the marginalization, the poverty. And we know that violence breeds violence. South Africa is a very violent society, and I'm not just talking about physical violence. I'm talking about the brutality of poverty, the brutality of bad education, the brutality of westernization in this place of school, work, and even in the home space at times. The ripping out of African spirituality, the demonization of African culture. These are violent experiences. And in my view, I'm not shocked when I see many of us act out in ways that, if you don't know the details, may seem quite dramatic and out of place. But who is really looting who?
Dr. Baba?
Yes.
You're on the floor, Baba, but please, let me just say, Sister Agatha earlier on said this presentation is so brilliant. It's full of it. It's so much full of it. But brother, I can't emphasize how the Most High is using you, because we are not getting this side here in the UK, brother. You're putting it into such phenomenal context, because elements, yes, we are getting here. Sure. But brother, the other side of the coin that you're giving us and the context that you're giving it in is fundamental. And that's what I say to brothers and sisters. It is fundamental that we listen to our own people who are there or on the front line, who are qualified, such as yourself. Brother, this is beautiful. It's brilliant. Yes, the information can be hard-hitting and wrenching to the soul at times, but as the Honorable Bob Marley stated, the truth may hurt, but it's never a sin. And what you're giving us today, brother, is absolute truth. Thank you, brother. I apologize for stopping you in your flow, but
Absolutely.
I had to say this is food for us, brother. Thank you.
I'm very honored. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you. And I know I'm dishing out a lot, and I will close in a few slides, but I wanted to. So I know I'm compressing the information, and I would invite people to also stay in touch with us, especially those who would like to get a maybe even fuller view or more details. But my question here was, who is looting who? And where does looting even come from and start? Is it not looting when a supermarket is pushing my community to not even live on a certain ground because they want to build? Is it not looting when they bring in a management and a corporate structure that does not even recruit anybody from my community? Is it not looting when they come in and plant a place, forcing all the smaller providers and shops and people who sell all kinds of vegetables and small things to actually close business? Is that not looting? Is it not looting when I'm forced to pay so much more for certain products because this becomes the only place I can shop? Is that not looting? I think it is. So for me, and I'm not necessarily claiming that this was a very structured political action of people who were tired of oppression. I think it's not necessarily having that structure in mind, at least not in the main, but I see it as a symbolic war against the structures in the community that now represents the opposite of hope, the opposite of possibility to get out of poverty. And if you think about it, the symbolic meaning of malls and shopping centers is that because we are drawn to them and because we are told that they are better. And you know, one thing that you can say about shopping malls, we had this conversation with a sister who said that I hate shopping malls. I hate the idea of shopping malls, but it's safer for me as a woman to walk there than down just any street. And that's something to be mindful of. Also, these colossal buildings then represent exploitation. They are there to get my money, and money leaves the community. It does not stay in the community. And to me, that's exploitation and looting. So I'm not trying to excuse all the things that happen. That's not even my point. My point is to say that these things will continue to happen when injustice is a daily occurrence in a society. And then I want to mention at the tail end, I don't know if you have gotten this news story. So there's a small community where about 80 to 90% of the community is of Indian origin. And the community is called Phoenix. You can look this up on Google and you'll find some news stories, even on YouTube. The official, so what happened there as part of these violences was that there were a number of Indian people who went on rampage to just shoot any Black person. And the news stories and those who have gone on the ground to really talk to people, because the news have not told us these stories at all. They've kept it really hushed down. So there's an activist group that have gone into homes, talked about people, noted down the details of really trying to find the facts. And what what TV stations have told us after a while, because for a long time they didn't say anything, but after a while they said that they used a body count of 38 people who were killed. But when our people, we have a number of young people who have gone on the ground, as I said, they find that it at least is 74 people who are confirmed that were killed. And there's 34 bodies that are unclaimed in the mortuary right now. And a number of people who are wounded, a number of people whose limbs are breaking, who are on the verge of mental breakdown, a whole of destruction in the community. So these were Black people who either walked through the Indian community, were driving their cars. There's stories of African women who were stopped as they were driving to wherever they needed to go, taken out of the cars and just used machetes and guns on, like really horrific scenes. And the stories that kind of came out from Indian channels and social media accounts was that they were defending themselves against Black people who were attacking them. And it's very clear that there was no attack. There were shops and places outside of the community that were attacked, but no community, no people were attacked by Africans. So this is a news story that is still working on, and I could also share that one brother, one young man, Jackie Shandu, who's in charge of the whole trying to do the investigation on a community level. One struggle song from back in the day used to be sung, and it has the words, "One settler, one bullet." And what that means is that we want to finish the oppressor. That's the symbolic meaning of it. And on a demonstration that they did outside the court 2 days ago, they were singing this, and they were saying, "One Indian, one bullet." So what the Indian community has done now is that they have mobilized, and this person is now on trial because they have now turned this into a hate crime against Indian people. So that's what the news is now picking up, that Black people want to kill Indians. So it's almost like there's an undercurrent where they want to create a race war, and where this is kind of being triggered and being provoked. That's really what I wanted to share about what has happened. And I hope you saw the link to what I wanted to say about identity and about self-doubt and but what do we do? What is next? And I think this is why I prefaced what I wanted to share with you as these things don't have nice and easy outcomes. We can't just sit and hold each other's hands and hope for healing. There's a whole system that is very rich and very moneyed and very resourced, that is set up to make sure that we will never be free, that we will never dare to even stand up to it. I do not believe that they will win, but I can understand how to every woman and man, this seems so impossible, because everywhere you turn, everywhere you try, you are pushed back. You are not being listened to. You are not being heard. And I think it's important that this point is also remembered, especially amongst sisters and brothers who may be physically far from where we are now. As you said, Brother Andrew, some of these points you don't get on your side. And I think it's important because to some extent, sitting on a side outside of the continent, it may be easy to think, but these people are not even standing up. Why are they allowing white people to stay there? Why are they allowing Indians to shoot them? Why are they allowing to do this? And I think this is what I wanted to bring across in what I shared with you tonight, that it's detailed, it's intricate. It's not just a couple of people who are doing bad things. It's a system that, like I said, is moneyed. It's well supported. It's very structured. So we also need to get ourselves to a point of being structured and orderly when we want to turn chaos into order. And I think as I'm signing out of the lecture, this is why we are so invested in the work that we do on the ground. We want to build leadership. We want to build African women and men who can see all the details of what we shared tonight, but can also think beyond it and over it and mobilize through our own education, our own food security, our own ventures to really bring back the African power that we were always supposed to have in the first place. I know we haven't seen the end of violence on the continent. We have not seen the end of violence in Azania. I hate to say it, but to me, it's the truth. And that's why we need to have focus on the truth, telling the story as it really is, and motivate young people to stand up and be part of the force that creates the solution. In summary, we have spoken about identity, self-hatred, and disunity. I have linked it to some of the horrific scenes of violence that we have seen over the last weeks. And it's not a South African story alone, but I wanted to give you some textures to really feel what it feels like being here at this moment. I want us to think beyond just being reactive. I want us to think beyond being self-destructive. I want us to think beyond scripting ourselves as powerless. We are an extremely powerful people, and we are called to be the solution. We can, we will, and we must. With those words, I want to thank you so much for listening. I honor you, and thank you so much.
Brothers and sisters, please, Sani Banani, that's right, I see you. Brothers and sisters, Eureka's got a few questions. I saw a very good question by Pax Noir. But before we do any questions or any comments, brothers and sisters, can we please, he was like a machine gun, not he, sorry, Dr. Baba, Dr. Baba was like a machine gun of truth, of information, of every single thing. Oh, brothers and sisters, come on, brothers and sisters. Brother, no, we thank you, my king. We thank you because it was so on time, so in depth, so informative. Thank you, brother. And your timekeeping was absolutely perfect, brother. Absolutely perfect. I've seen one or two phenomenal comments. I'll leave it to Jarita, and I'll see one or two good questions. Just before we do any questions, brothers and sisters, I just want to note that next week, brothers and sisters, it's going to be a mad one as well. We've got Dr. Baba Buntu from South Africa tonight. But brothers and sisters, next week we're going back to the US of A, and we've got our brother Reverend Shock. Come on, the top, only the top come on this program, brothers and sisters. Reverend Shock, and his theme is nothing is wrong with Simone Biles. Something happened to Simone Biles. And many of us who know about Reverend Shock, that's been his theme from number one day. Yeah, it's going to be a massive, brilliant show with, just like Dr. Baba, full of information, brothers and sisters. So that's going to be next week, Hidden Truth, here on this platform. Reverend Shock, LA, coming live with us. Nothing is wrong with Simone Biles, because the way they're portraying this sister right now, brothers and sisters, let's find out the understanding behind it. So before we finish, Sister Jarita, I hand over to you, my queen.
Brother, thank you so much, as usual. You blew the place up. People are asking for you to return before you even finished.
Oh, wow.
That's done. That's done.
That's so honored. Thank you.
Lots of people are like, we need to have this brother back. And I said that from before you began, that, you know, you come on a few times now, and you hold my attention, you hold everybody's attention. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight. I do have a couple of questions in the chat. So the first question that I'm going to go for is the one by it's by someone called Pat Noah, I think.
Yes.
She says, Dr. Baba Buntu, I'm really intrigued. Why are other Black Africans being targeted? Their businesses, community ravaged directly by Black Azanians. I understand that Asian businesses have also been targeted, but it's been a couple of years since deliberately Ethiopian, Nigerian, etc. are destroyed, and there's a particular hatred, violence towards other Africans from the continent. The self-hatred is manifesting towards other Africans or Blacks. Do Black Azanians consider themselves African?
Thank you so much. Should I go straight or should I wait for another question? Yeah, okay. So first of all, thank you so much for the question. And let me just also say that these are huge questions. Even the topics that I brought up in the slide, I could have spoken for another 2 hours to really go into it. So I'm just saying that now we are kind of dealing with the topics. But to say something about this question, it's a very important question. Do South Africans consider themselves Black, and do they consider themselves African? Yes, they do. But you also need to remember that colonial education has set the African up to hate him or herself to a large degree. And most Africans, even around the continent, learn more about, if they learn about African history, it would be about their own country, maybe about a region within their country, not so much about others. So also in South Africa, which has kind of just come out of, I mean, Buntu education, which it was called during apartheid, was a very designed, sparse form of education, which had the mindset of these Black people must not know too much. They mustn't become too clever, so we don't want to teach them too many things. Now, that has changed in the new dispensation of so-called democracy, but it hasn't necessarily changed the mindset. It hasn't changed how South Africans live in many parts of the country. So what, for instance, happens is we may be living in a quite needy community, let me say it that way. And then we sign up, we are applying for housing, and then we've been told that maybe next year we'll move into a better place. We are waiting for a year, but nothing happens. We go and complain, they say, no, you need to wait for another year. Now we are tired. Why do you have to wait for 2 years just to get access to a place to live that is kind of more decent, not even beautiful? Then all of a sudden we see that there are some links within the local government that gives keys to people who just arrived from somewhere else because they may be able to pay a little bit more, because they may be able to, you understand? So for instance, if I'm now a Black South Africans and I see that it seems like Zimbabweans are moving in and they're taking the spot that I was planning to give my family. Now, and this is how Black on Black oppression works. If we can read Amos Wilson, he explains it to us in detail. But because I know that I cannot really take the enemy, I'm going to go for what is closer to me, another Black person. So, and this is how, yes, I'm not trying to say that this violence is not specific also here in South Africa, but for me, it ties into other elements of Black on Black violence in other places in the world as well. We attack another Black body because that's what we feel is available to us. That's where we feel we can unleash some of our anger and some of our power, not really go to the institutionalized crime that actually forces this conflict on us. So it has a lot to do with that. But I would say this as well, that these, and I think one thing I haven't really addressed in this, and maybe we don't have time, but in addition to what I've said as some of the root causes to these conflicts, are also that there is an understanding that there are forces underneath which may be paid by outside agents, that may be paid by certain elements of powerful white people in South Africa, that are also instigating conflicts. That are, we know this from how Europe has created wars, created conflicts in parts of the world, which deviates the attention from something else, for instance, a presidential election or an election campaign, so that the eyes of the world are somewhere else. And those tactics would definitely be used in South Africa as well. But this is not necessarily open information. This is not something we can just quickly go and research. All I'm saying is that there's a combination of things. It has a little bit to do with the mindsets and the twisted understanding of identity that is an outcome of all these generations of pain. But it's also what is happening politically right now, and all these corrupt government faces that keeps people butting into each other and being in conflict with each other, instead of with the government structures that are actually creating and upholding the problems. I hope I gave a little bit of light to some of the...
No, you shot that one down totally. I definitely think I got your feel for it. I have two more questions before I wrap up. My next question is from Michael, who says, the ANC of Mandela seems to have failed. What can replace them? The land ownership of less than 10% Black imbalance is not sustainable. So I don't know if you've got any comments that you could say of how that could be.
Yes, again, thank you for the question. And of course, again, it's also a big question, and I might not be able to go into all the details, but I think even within ANC, there's an agreement that ANC has failed. There's a lot of fractions, there's a lot of bickering and fighting, even to the extent that in some regional chapters, people are actually being killed because they are not signing up for the same bill, they're not agreeing with each other. There's a whole lot of mess within the ANC broader structure, from top to bottom. Obviously, those of us who stand on the outside, I'm not involved, I'm not aligned with a particular political party, but of course we work more with the Pan-Africanists, the AZAPO, the PAC, and I think what has happened quite tragically to some of the political parties that really could have steered South Africa in a good direction is that they were also co-opted. A lot of resources were spent on making sure that these movements could not be agreeable, could not be consistent, could not work under a unified leadership. So there's been a lot of fragmentation within the Pan-African political circuits, and that has really weakened the Pan-African voice. There were many people quite some years ago who were very interested in voting for PAC and saw themselves as Pan-Africanists, but for some time they also became very tired of seeing the Pan-Africanists as a weak structure, as a structure that didn't really have leadership in the way that it was expected. And again, I'm suspecting that this is something that was also designed and was part of the package, that South Africa shouldn't become a Pan-African country. God forbid. Just imagine how much the West invested in South Africa during apartheid, and as apartheid was falling, they took some time to see, you know what, how can we still extract resources from this country? How can we still make sure that South Africa is very beneficial to us from the outside and to also the Europeans who are staying in the country? So it has a lot to do with the undercurrents of power and who can pull strings. It's a very rotten game.
Okay, thank you so much. Last question, and then I'm going to ask you also to share with us how we can support your Ebukusini. Is that all right? Hey,
perfect.
I'm
Yes.
going to ask you how we can support that. So if you can get those details ready. But the last question is sort of amalgamation of the last two that I have here. One from somebody called The Bang, and another one from Sis Lightning. And they're really about how we define, I guess, our identity and our race. So the bank says, how can we define people who are mixed race without calling them coloured, especially in South Africa? And Sis Lightning says, is there a move to drop the term black and use the term indigenous? And have you considered that? So I guess it's all about sort of defining how we label ourselves.
Right. No, thank you so much. To the first question, I think, so what is difficult with the word colored, and I maybe want to clean up a little bit of what I meant when I said earlier that for a long time I refused to use the word because it is a European invented design of a community that should kind of sit between blackness and whiteness. That was its intention. And within that group, and I think this is why it's problematic, mixed race is not fully covering what is meant by colored in South African terms. Colored means, in a way, it means not black, not white. That's kind of what it means. And it means that it's people of color, sometimes in very dark complexion. So it's not about a visibility of mixed race necessarily. Sometimes the mix can be about having Asian descent, Indian descent, Malaysian descent, maybe very little, if any, African descent at all. But then often it is somebody who has a bit of white descent in them, but have a stronger descent from the indigenous Khoisan people of Southern Africa. But also people who are, and it's strange to talk about ourselves in this ways, but I hope you understand why I'm using the terms just to simplify. So those who are unmixed Khoisan people are also often rolled into the term colored. And what it means more than anything is that these are people who were given the language which is called Afrikaans, which is a Boer type of Dutch. They were forced to learn that language, and often because they were working on white farms. So they became a group of people who were taught in a particular way, treated in a particular way, taught a certain identity. And when, you know, this is a memory we have with us as a people, when you are treated a certain way for a very long time, you may, and for generations, I'm saying, you may also get to a point where you are tired of fighting and you tell yourself that I'm not really accepting what my master and what my owner is telling me, but I'm tired of fighting. Let me just get through my day. Let me just make sure my children are okay. But in a way, over some time, you start to internalize. You start to think of yourself as you accept the bias, you accept the race connotation that is within it, and you become that colored person. And that's what I mean when I say that coloredness exists, in the sense that there are people who will want to call themselves nothing else but colored. They don't want to be called mixed race. They don't want to be called black. But then there are also people of mixed African and European descent who are very clear about their blackness. So it's not a community where everyone thinks the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that little I can offer to that, and I haven't worked a lot in colored communities, I'll be very honest, but I think I go by what I see. So if I see that you are a person of African descent, then you are an African to me. And if I see you as somebody who appears to be of Asian origin or Asian features, that's what I would think of you as. And then, of course, we have to get into conversation. And maybe you say that, you know, my grandmother was Black or what, like we can have that conversation. And I think people who are mixed, what is the word? When it's not clear what kind of racial component is strong in you, there's a word for it. I don't remember what it is right now. When you are ambiguous. And it's horrible to talk about we are people first and foremost, of course, but we also need to understand what this means. And I think I see a change in terms of how people look at their Africanness. And I think that's where we really need to emphasize. We are on the continent. We have direct access to languages and cultures and histories that if we don't embrace them and really work with them now, they may also disappear. So I think I'm tying in with the last question I got there as well on Black and Indigenous. I think, you know, so you may, I don't know how people feel about the word tribe in Europe right now, but a number of people, including myself, we feel a bit uneasy about using the word tribe, and we like to use the word nation instead, because that's really what we are describing. Tribe is a word that has a lot of connotations to it because of how Europeans have used it. So it has some immaturity to it, it has some bestiality to it, it has some uncivilized connotations to it, and we don't want to really mess with that. And I think in the same way, so I use the word indigenous, but it's also kind of funny to have to say indigenous when it's so clear that, I mean, why would British people have to go and say, yes, an indigenous British? Like, they wouldn't have to say that. Why should Africans on the continent have to declare that as, like, why shouldn't it just be normal that you are from this continent? So I think I don't necessarily have a huge problem with the word indigenous, but I think I have a problem with when it's used out of context. I think there's a particular context where it makes sense to say that. But for instance, for a long time, and you will know this, that across the continent, many African medical scientists have been referred to as witch doctors. And then in an attempt to clean up that language, people have said practitioners of indigenous medicine. But then why is it indigenous? Why does it have to be, like, can it not just be African medicines, or can it not just be medicine? We understand that it has to do with power, how European medicine is seen as powerful and African medicine is seen as very small and insignificant. But I'm just saying, and I think we need to do two things. We need to allow ourselves to, certain things will make sense for the time that we are in. And I don't want us to hold on to things like they are religious labels. I mean, we used to call ourselves Negro at one point, and we felt it was relevant at the time. But then we understood that this is not a word we can identify with any longer, and we move on. And I think that's the African power as well, that we can move on. So I'm not sure where we will move on, but I think we need to be very clear that at the root of everything we do, justice must be served through and through and through and through. And as we say, no justice, no peace.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Brother, just two things, and I would like Jarita to end off the show, but just two things, brother. I mean, it's just been brilliant. We've got over 300 people still tuned in for you, okay, brother? And just two things on my end of things. One is, and I think Jarita said this earlier on, how can we support? I want to emphasize, where can we hit the link to support you? You know, you've been fantastic. Your heart has been there, brother. You've lived your life on the front line with us. You've given us fantastic information, but we can't just be sitting there taking it from you, brother. There's been a blockade on the amount of finances that you could take in Azania. So how can we make sure we invest in your works?
Okay, if I can bring up my last slide again, please. And it's just to show our contact details. I know that internationally, the way that people often feel more comfortable sending money is through like the GoFundMe and what is the other platform? PayPal. we have found it a little bit difficult because there's a lot of restrictions on how money come into South Africa. South Africa is a crime haven for many people. So a lot of money laundry and things like that is happening through South Africa. So for private customers in banks, there's a number of restrictions. But I would say this, please reach out to us. You could use the WhatsApp number there, +2774690 4012. And a number of people have been able to send us money through a platform called Remitly. I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but it exists in England as well, Remitly. But we could give you the details, and I think maybe let us respond to those of you who would be interested in, and there's many forms in many ways that you can support us. Sometimes we need material, just like writing material, stationaries, things like that to give to the youth and the children that we work with. Sometimes there may be technology that we can still use, even if in other parts of the world it's not really the top-notch technology anymore. So like iPads, laptops and phones. Communication is very important because we try to work across quite large areas, and of course we need resources in the form of money as well. So I would just suggest that you get in touch with us either through email or the WhatsApp, and then we can agree, because some may want to have maybe a monthly contribution, some may want to give a once-off, some may not be able to do it now, but we'd like to know how they can do this in 6 months from now. So I guess the information would be slightly different from person to person. But and what we would do, especially to those who want to come on board to be a consistent supporter, we will also then stay in touch with you, give you updates so that you can also see what you're contributing to. Because as much as people are willing to give, it is also important that you feel you know what you are actually supporting, and some of the details, the results. Maybe sometimes we set up a conversation also with some of the youth that we are working with, so you can also kind of get a face to relate to and a voice and a story. It's really about also exchanging information. It's maybe lastly, I should also say, I mentioned this at the beginning, some of you may be interested in visiting, some of you may be interested in considering to move. We know that a number of people in the diaspora are sick and tired of staying where they are staying and are considering other options. And Africa should be first on the list. But sometimes when you sit very far from Africa, at least that's how it sometimes feels, you also don't know where to begin. You don't know what kind of restrictions. Will you be able to get the papers? Can you get a job? Like all of those things. And maybe to just preempt something, we are working with some brothers who are based in Brazil and United States. And if everything goes well, in about a year from now, we are planning to have a retreat here in Tanzania for people who are based in the diaspora all over the world, who come mostly to kind of sink their feet into the continent's soil and want to kind of ground themselves. So it's going to be for about 2 weeks, but we also want to have an extension for those who want to stay for about 2 months and consider staying in Tanzania or another country. So we'll take them through a number of courses and experiences for them to really be able to make that decision if this is something they'd like to do. So in essence, there are many ways you can support and link and communicate with us. And even if you want to send a questions or a comment or ask for some references or materials, we are more than willing and very happy to stay in touch with our sisters and brothers. So thank you so much for opening up this platform and being with us tonight. I'm very, very humbled. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And we've got Sister China and Sister Jurita that will make sure that they put the links that you've given us to the platform, because, you know, we don't want to have a platform whereby we just talk. There must be some sort of action that changes the real world that we're living in. And brother, I think, you know, you've shown your war stripes, brother. You are honorable, brother. And you know, we have to do our bit and help the struggling in Tanzania, brother. We have to do our, so brothers and sisters, please let's support Dr. Baba Buntu, brothers and sisters, and make sure this happens. We thank you so much, my king, We thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. And, you know, we bow to you. Keep up the great works. Keep up the great works.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else regarding that, Sister Jurita?
No, I think that is pretty much all we have. But what I will say to you, brother, is that I will contact you personally, because I know that I have a few things at my current school that we are wanting to sort of donate somewhere at the moment. You know, pencils, pens, that kind of thing.
Oh, great.
And I'd love to be able to send them to you. So if you can get me some details, but I will message that number that you've left there and come back to you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
That's it.
Fantastic. Brothers and sisters, please don't go yet, but we are finishing now. We're finishing on time. I know that Brother Leo Mohammed is holding an event this Sunday. Leo Mohammed, are you with us? Brother Leo Mohammed, are you with us? I believe the brother's going to be doing something in Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner. Brother Leo, can you just, in a nutshell, I know you're on mute, yep. Could you let us know what's happening this Sunday, King?
Yeah, but first, Brother Andrew, I just got to reach out to Brother Dr. Baba Buntu, man. It's so wonderful to hear you, brother, and see you. You know, I remember us back in the day being together, and I really look forward to the day when Allah blesses me to be able to set foot on the soil of Kenya and come and visit with you, because, you know, it's been a long time, and I'm so proud of you, brother, for what you continue to do. Wonderful presentation, brother. Thank you so much.
Wasn't it, Leo? Fantastic.
Awesome, brother. Absolutely awesome. And, you know, that country and what it's been through really, really resonates with myself. And I have to say, I agree 100% with one of the last sentiments shared by our brother with us, that unfortunately, we have not seen the worst of what is to come where that situation is concerned. Because, you know, Brother Andrew, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the enemy is just disagreeable to live with. And, you know, whether we like it or not, the machinations that are going on there, all of these things that we see manifesting, they're not by accident, but they are in fact by design. And it is to divert attention from the continued hundreds of years of injustice and iniquity, whereby the majority population, brother, own less than 10% of the land. That is completely and utterly unsustainable. And that change has to come one way or another. And this is what they're trying to avert. But ultimately, that's going to have to happen. And unfortunately, it will entail bloodshed. So I just wanted to say that. Thank my brother. But Brother Andrew, this Sunday, inshallah, if Allah spares my life, we're going to be back in Hyde Park Speaker's Corner, throwing down. We're going to be talking about Black female-male relationship, rebuilding the Black family. And we're inviting as many Black people who want to come into that arena. It's a very hostile environment, Hyde Park. Some of you will have seen some of the videos that we've been doing down there over many, many years. We're going back this Sunday and we're going to be throwing down and blowing up Speaker's Corner. So we want our people to come out. We start at 1 p.m. in Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner, that's Marble Arch. And it should be a very interesting, dynamic occasion. So that's what we're doing this Sunday, Brother Andrew.
Thank you, Brother Leo. And obviously you're welcome anytime to let us know how that goes and give us updates and promote what you're doing there. Because as I said, I don't have to speak anything more about you, Brother Leo. It's down by law. Brothers and sisters, can we please make some noise for Sister Jurita? Because, you know, she kept the show on time, on link, on power. Please, please, please. It's not easy thrown into the deep end, brothers and sisters. And, you know, I was in and out, not because of choice, but due to my connections. But Jurita kept the flow going. And that's what we're building, brothers and sisters. We're going to have problems in our liberation. But you know what? If we cover for each other and just keep moving, keep our point online, keeping our eyes on the prize. And Sister Jurita has shown that this is a new day, brothers and sisters. They cannot stop us from going forward. So Sister Jurita, please let her know how much we love her, man. And that, you know, Sister does a lot of work, man, not just on this platform, outside of this platform, but she makes sure that she's consistent and committed to make sure that this word goes out around the world. So, you know, we want to thank Sister Dorita, but, you know, our keynote speaker, our brother, Dr. Baba Buntu, absolutely stellar. And I just want to make sure we don't forget the healing of our sister Dr. Sandra Richards. I'm not sure if she's still with us today. Sister Dr. Sandra, are you with us still today? Because this is a small community, man. You know what I mean? This is we all linked up. Brother, Dr. Baba says, you know what? I've not seen Sister Dr. Sandra Richards for years. So this is like a little reunion tonight. Sister Doctor, as we finish tonight, we are finishing. Are there any last words you'd like to say based on tonight?
Well, give thanks, and I was so excited to see our honourable brother, Dr. Baba Buntu. I mean, I've been on this road for some considerable years, so some of the names that are called, I will recognise them when I was trying to find my way and sitting at the feet of elders. He would have been one of those people that shared, and it's just an honour, really, to hear him. The healing aspect, I have to say, though, isn't necessarily a touchy-feely thing. Let's just get clear about that. When I speak about healing, one needs to know that this is warrior talk, and all warriors.
Warrior talk.
Not all warriors are going to be loud, and not all warriors are going to be visible in the traditional sense. The work that needs to be done to deal with the trauma that was just expressed by our honorable brother has to be dealt with in a particular way. The reason why we're traumatized is because some things have been done to us systematically, repeatedly. It is an intrinsic, purposeful, wicked behavior. And our brother Leo says that people are, I think I wrote it down. He said disagreeable. The English language is so interesting. There's some other language that we could use, but to remain polite in polite company, disagreeable is what we'll work with. There is a real intention to destabilize and to hurt us, to exploit us. And as we get to know what has happened, we will recognize that we will be triggered and there is trauma. And we must heal so that we can be on point and respond and repair. So it's an honor to be with you again this evening and with the family. We give thanks. Give thanks.
Thanks, my queen. Warrior talk to our sister. And just in that vein, she reminds me of great sister warriors like Sister Auntie Jean. Auntie Jean, I see you, my queen. You keep up your great works, man. Sister Kemet Imani, keep up your great work. Sister Paulette Harris. I mean, we've got some warrior queens. Sister Joy with an I. Sister Lady Wisdom. You know, I mean, these are sisters that are absolutely on the front line doing some phenomenal works, man. And yeah, Dr. Sandra, you're leading that way, my queen. Brothers and sisters, please, as we said, as we started the program, as we must remind you, don't forget, next week, we've got Reverend Shock, the metaphysical Morpheus, back with us next week, brothers and sisters. This will be a mad thing. That's all I'm going to say to you, man. We're going to go in and we're going to defend, we're going to lock down, and we're going to look at what's happening with Simone Biles on a wider scale. It ties in what Sister Dr. Sandra Richards spoke about just now, and our eminent guest today, Dr. Baba Buntu. But this is all tying in, brothers and sisters. As I said, I apologize tonight for not being able to play the videos, promote the businesses that we normally promote. I've chosen not to play too many videos because of the bandwidth that may be that it may eat up and not allow me to keep on the platform. So, brothers and sisters, we thank you so much for your support.
Andrew, I'm sorry to disturb you as you're speaking, but I'm sure it would not be right for this evening to close without us acknowledging what you are there to do and to offer you our support our prayers, sending you light and love. Know that we are with you as you are doing this very important process, this ritual in your life. And we want to know you to know that we are with you in spirit. You will be on our mind. And we pray that everything goes according to and better than you have planned.
Thank you, my queen. Those words mean a lot, my queen. Thank you so much. And yes, pure love, man. I know my father would resonate on those words. Thank you, my sister, queen, sister Dr. Sandra Richards. Brothers and sisters, yeah, don't forget, next week we're still rolling through the land. We've got our brother, eminent guest, Reverend Shock. And so, you know, stay strong. I thank all of you that have come onto the platform tonight, whether you're from London, whether you're from Manchester, whether you're from Luton, whether you're from Chicago. We've got our sister Tisha out in Canada, our sister from Phoenix, our brother from Chicago. We've got a big shout out to brother Simon in Trinidad. We got our Jamaican crew online. We're worldwide, brothers and sisters. So let's keep this link going. Let's keep the power going. And Sister Jarita, we salute you yet again, and we thank you for keeping the show on the road, my queen.
No worries. I'm here for that all day, every day. The only one thing I wanted to say before we finished, at the very beginning of this, of today, we spoke with Brother Corey. Corey, I don't know if you're still there. I can still see you, but yes.
Oh, I thought my brother had gone. That's why I saw a message in the chat room saying I've had to go to another meeting. That's why I left it. Sorry, I didn't realize he was still there. Sorry.
Oh, I'm still very much here.
We obviously have, I've been dropping that link to your Just Giving page, your fundraising page even, and I know from what I've just seen, I'm not a maths teacher, I am a English teacher, so maths ain't my strong point, but I think there has been a significant increase from when I saw the beginning of the show to what I've seen now. So I don't know if if your maths is better than mine, if you'd like to give us a little update or anything that you'd like to say about that.
So yeah, there's been a massive increase in the amount of donations, and just extremely grateful to everyone here for promoting the campaign, to sharing it. I'd love to keep the conversation going as well. So please feel free to reach out. Again, this is about driving the next generation forward as well. So I'd love to keep this conversation going.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you. We appreciate you. As I said at the beginning, your dream is our dream. So anything that we can do to support, please support. For those who are still asking for those details, I'm going to drop those in the chat now. There you go. Please do support and give what you can for this good cause. Thank you so much.
So, brothers and sisters, please use this as a symbolism of supporting the next generation. This was a young brother straight out of Cambridge University, moving into Abbey Road, being taught by the people that have created these systems so that he can then uplift us. Don't talk about the next generation if we're not willing to support them. Yeah, and it can't be just in words. So make a copy of the link that Jarita's given us, but also, and I'm talking to myself as well, donate to the cause, and let's make this brother understand he's got a solid wall. He's got a community worldwide that are looking for him, that are looking for his interest, because his success is our success. Our success is his success. It's the spirit of Ubuntu. So brothers and sisters, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And I greet you in the greeting words of peace. We say in Arabic, in the words of paradise, Assalamu alaikum. Stay strong. Tonight's show is dedicated to Ronako Rashidi. This is our brother. I thank you so much, my brothers and sisters. Keep the spirit going. And I greet you in the Assalamu alaikum. Support Black love every single time. sorry, brothers and sisters. Sorry, brothers and sisters. Sorry. Is Sister Dr. Sandra Richards